I'm Jocelyn Lockyer. I'm a PhD medical educator in the medical education specialization, and I'm professor in the Department of Community Health Sciences of the Cummings School of Medicine. This session is on selecting methods of inquiry. My goals today are to help you define methods and being able to differentiate methods from methodology, but also so you can describe the components that are required in the methods section of either a proposal or a manuscript. Methods are really your cookbook. So it's the orderly steps and collection of data and the way you're going to analyze the data. Methodology, on the other hand, is really the study of methods, including philosophical principles that inform different approaches and the technical issues of how to generate and analyze data. So methodology is a higher order of concern. As you think about your project, there are a number of things that you have to consider, and all of these items hinge on your research questions. First of all, what is your overall approach? What data do you need? Where will you get the data? How much data do you need? How will you collect the data? What are the ethical issues you need to ensure you manage? How will you manage the data, and how will you analyze the data? So we'll go through each of these in turn. First of all, you have to decide, based on your research questions, what is your overall approach? Is it quantitative? Is it qualitative? Is it mixed? If it's quantitative, you will be counting things, measuring variables, developing hypotheses and theories, and then doing analysis such as correlations, linear regression. If it's qualitative, you are going to be looking at textual data and exploring and analyzing meaning and experiences. You may choose to do a mixed method study in which you make a deliberate decision to combine both quantitative and qualitative data into one project in parallel or in sequential form to most effectively answer your questions. You need to think about the data that you require to answer your questions. If you have a quantitative study, you probably are going to be collecting survey or questionnaire data. You may have access to exam or testing data, score sheets from OSCEs, or learner file data. Occasionally you will have data from other sources. If you are doing qualitative work, you will have textual data probably collected from interviews, focus groups, perhaps documents, field notes. You may be looking at journal and newspaper articles. You may have observational data. When you think about your data, you really have to be thinking about the settings and situations that are available to you. Are you in a situation where you can collect test data? You have access to a group of residents or a group of medical students or a group of physicians with a specific practice profile. You may be able to negotiate data from student files, and you have to think about whether you're accessing confidential files, which may mean obtaining consent from those people, or publicly available data such as might be available in reports or through journal articles. And you may also have access to simulation debriefs for a study. In any event, you really want to be thinking about the participants for your study and how that will help you answer your questions. As far as how many pieces of data you need, for quantitative studies, you're really thinking about power, how many you need to demonstrate reliability and stability of scores, and or the validity that you need to reach a decision related to the use of scores. In qualitative data, the concern is generally about the number needed for data saturation when subsequent interviews don't yield new themes. Of course, you do have to take into consideration the feasibility of your study, recognizing that too few participants can compromise your ability to convince others of your findings, and too many can be wasteful of resources. You're going to collect the data from participants, and so you'll need to figure out what your selection criteria is, how you're going to recruit people, and also how people will be involved. Will you have to do an intervention? Are you going to have access to file data? As far as instruments are concerned, you will have to develop an interview protocol, look at your test and exam score data, create a data collection instrument for textual data, whether you're analyzing journal articles or student essays. In any event, you're likely going to have to adapt and revise your instruments, particularly for textual and qualitative data as you go along. Ethical issues that one needs to ensure are things like informed consent. Do the players consent to have you use your data for this study towards a publication or presentation? How will you ensure confidentiality? Will you identify people as A, B, C? Will you agree that you will only present data in aggregate form? Again, anonymity of participants is important. You will have to think about inclusion and exclusion criteria and how you're going to mitigate risk. In terms of managing the data, it will be important to think about data security. Where are you going to keep the data? How will you ensure that no one other than those on the protocol can access it? What are the requirements for long-term data storage? In this, you'll be thinking about locked cabinets. You'll be thinking about passwords, encryption of data, those kinds of things to convince an ethics review board that you're on top of data management. So in summary, the methods section of a proposal should contain your setting, that is your geographic location, the people who will be participating in the study, how you're going to collect the data, including the instruments that you will use, how you're going to manage the data with attention to security and anonymity, confidentiality. You need to pay attention to how you're going to analyze your data, and last, attention to ethical considerations.